Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. Jerry, having been a science teacher, I am all about authentic learning. It's got to make sense for the real world. It has to transfer. And so that is why I am so excited about our conversation today. Looking forward to this.
I am too. I've been looking forward to it because it really gets to the heart of why we do this work in the first place. We talk about preparing kids for the future, but if they're not future leaders, what if they're really leading right now? We just had a student on the podcast, our last podcast, 17 years old, doing a keynote at FETC. She's leading now.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited to welcome our guests, Tisha Poncio and Rick Butterworth, co-authors of Today's Learners, Tomorrow's Leaders. So welcome to the LinkedUp Podcast.
Excellent.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here with you.
Oh, we're happy to have you as well. So Tisha and Rick, tell us just a little bit of background and why you would write a book about today's leaders.
I'm going to let Rick take this one because he always takes this question and he can succinctly tell you how we got here because it is sort of a story that you never would have guessed.
Oh, love that.
Yeah,
Love
I was going to say, Tish, did you want to take it for a change? But clearly, no, that's not happening today. So for those that don't know me, I was one of the former co-founders of an edtech platform called Wakelet. I got to meet Tish through Wakelet, through the work we were partnering. Then obviously Tisha joined the company in, was it 2021? I always get the year wrong every time.
That's right.
And basically, shortened version, we hit it off. We recognized that both of us are neurodivergent. I'm dyslexic. Tisha is recently diagnosed ADHD, which has a completely separate story, which we'll keep off of this one for a change. But basically, I attended TCEA, which was my first edtech conference. So I actually got to experience what everything was about within the education sector and really started to see how all these different companies are coming together for one main goal, which was to uplift the next generation of students. And from there, Tish and I really started hitting it off, doing different webinars, and then we ended up going to ISTE in 2023. We did a presentation on student portfolios and then a panel on Web3 technologies as well, which was really exciting because it's looking at the future. And it was at that conference that we got approached about basically co-authoring a book. Tisha already had an idea of what she wanted to talk about. And from her experience of over 20 years in education, which is, I still look at and think is absolutely incredible because I'm not a teacher, but looking at the hard work that all these educators do is incredible. And she's so passionate about uplifting any student and really honing in on their key strengths. And then from my side, with the entrepreneurial side, we really started to see how these two can be married together and create the book that we have today that steps into student leadership and entrepreneurship, problem solving, creativity, all these different aspects that every single student can do in their own unique way. And that's what we want to elevate.
Yeah, I was actually doing this in my classroom before I started working at Wakelet. I created a classroom that operated very similar to a startup, and I had students who were learning to go and learn the customer service skills to help the teachers in our school with their devices, help the students in those classrooms with the devices. I was putting them in teams of web design teams, so they were making our website. They were using Google Sites to do that. They were doing different graphic design projects and helping the teachers in the club sponsors to put out different information and announcements, just really getting them into the day-to-day problem solving, but how to do that with technology And then like everything I did in this class was very unconventional of a regular classroom. So I had been teaching since the 90s, and it took me quite a while to get to this point. So I always talk about, it didn't happen overnight. It really was a student that basically showed me their portfolio, and I was astounded by what they created when I gave them space and time to ideate on their own. And then when that happened, I essentially flipped the script in my own classroom on myself and said, how did you do that? And how did you make the decisions to get to that point? Can you show me how to do that? So then I started doing things side by side with them, and then started bringing in different leadership experts to work with them. We did like leadership studies every week for 6 weeks, and I would have somebody come in during lunch. And those students didn't have to attend, but they always showed up. And because they were doing it, I was showing up with them. And when they were goal setting, I was goal setting. And, we talk a lot about iron sharpens iron, and the people that you're around is who you become. I used to tell my students and my own kids that forever. But I was sitting with my students, and they were goal setting and I was goal setting. And we were doing that back and forth. And I found myself going back to school for my master's degree because of this. And that was not in my plan at all. And I ended up getting my master's degree, I say, because of my students. And it put me on this path of learning a lot about the behind the scenes of these edtech tools that I was using in my classroom. And it piqued my interest. And then I started partnering with these edtech platforms like Wakelet, and my students were presenting for them. So now they're presenting for these companies, showing how to use these tools in that student perspective, but then also meeting with product teams and telling them what they liked and didn't like about their platform, giving that authentic feedback, and really, really creating and completing that learning and feedback cycle. And so when I met Rick and when I started working at Wakelet, I was able to see, on a grander scale, these skills that I have been teaching in my classroom, and now I'm seeing it in a real world perspective. And then I was doing portfolio talk forever, but then Rick and I it just like came about at ISTE 23. And I went, oh, we could take what we could take what I've done, and we can take those and put them together and really show how you can do this in the classroom, because it doesn't have to be something that is overwhelming. That's something that I used to say with portfolios. Don't let it be overwhelming. Decide that it's not overwhelming, and decide the 1 or 2 skills that you want your students to learn that will benefit them in the future.
Yeah.
As you're talking, I'm thinking the title of your book, Today's Learners, Tomorrow's Leader, that's not just the students.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's exactly it. And we wrote this book. Once we started writing the book, I was like, this is not just for students. It's not just for teachers, but it's for the leaders of the school, and it's for the parents of those students. So we have had a lot of homeschool parents interested in this book, and it was not something I anticipated. But you're absolutely right, Jerry. I was doing it, right? So it is very reflective of that. And we encourage anybody to read this. In the book, we interviewed I interviewed some business owners in my town and asked them exactly how are you going about hiring these students? What are the pain points for you when you hire the students? And what do you wish they knew? And so getting some authentic feedback from business owners and kind of pulling in community, because I'm really big into community. And, I've watched your podcast and some of the things you said, and it is, it isn't just the teacher's responsibility. It's not just the parents' responsibility. It's all of our responsibility to really foster these leadership skills in our students.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
That is just so exciting. And you mentioned I taught in the 90s, and I always say this, Jerry always laughs, because that's when I started teaching too. And I feel like it was so different then. We were able to do so many different things in our classrooms. We had much more freedom.
Yes.
And so, in fact, when I first started teaching, my very first 3 months was a temporary leave replacement, but it was with these amazing teachers in Wilmington, Delaware. And they did these mini communities. Basically, kids started their own businesses.
Yes.
And then they sold them. And that was just phenomenal. It was such a great experience for them to come up with these great ideas and create them, and then figure out how to promote them and sell them. And that whole experience is so phenomenal. And it really shouldn't be just this like one and done thing.
Right.
So in your book, what grade levels do you kind of target? And what are some of the ways, because you use the word simple, and a lot of times teachers, you talked about that with respect to portfolios, but also a lot of times teachers get scared. They get scared to do these sorts of things.
Yes.
So what are some tips for you to kind of say anyone can do this?
So I think when we were sitting down to write the book, Rick and I were like, this is going to go for everybody. This is like everybody in the world. And our editors were like, no, it can't be that. You have got to hone in on a grade level. So we decided to hone in on the middle school, high school grade level.
Okay.
But I say that because I wanted to preface it with the strategies that we talk about. So we did a presentation at ISTE this last year. I'm going to let Rick talk about it, but basically it's 2 stars, 1 wish. And I'm going to let him kind of explain what that is. But what I want to say before he explains this strategy is that, you know, the feedback that is happening in classrooms is already something that teachers are doing. And so if you just slightly adjust how you're doing it, and I always talk about, Rick and I talk a lot on our podcast about systems and shifting things just 1 degree, just one slight change could powerfully change this for the students. But one of the strategies we talk about is 2 stars, 1 wish. Rick, do you want to tell them what that is about? You can use me as an example. I'm in your classroom. How is that going to go?
I feel like I'm being tested now. So basically the 2 stars, 1 wish is basically an approach of how to give someone credible feedback without making them feel like they've done something wrong, because we can always give someone feedback and it can be taken in a negative way. But the advantage of a 2 star, 1 wish is essentially to give one positive aspect of what they've done, where they can critique it, and then either following up based on what you said originally or giving them another piece of feedback. There's multiple different names that it has. A rubbish sandwich is another one that it's been used more in the corporate environment. But this one really, if for example, Tisha's explanation of what we've had in the book would be, Tish, I really like that way that you went about detailing the areas of the book that we've tried to explain. And what I would probably say is, could you dive a little bit deeper into that area so that we have a bit more information? But the way that you're structuring it is fantastic. All of a sudden, I'm giving that uplift. I'm asking where to improve, and I'm keeping that positivity going through towards the end. Now, not every student is going to receive it that way. Every student's different. So there's so many different ways that we can obviously give feedback back to students. But as Tish said, you just want to move the needle 1%. Start off with that one thing. And the greatest thing about it, by offering these different types of feedback, builds students' confidence, which is the most powerful thing overall. So when we're looking at everything and saying, well, we want to build student confidence overall, how am I going to do it? That's the North Star. That's the end goal for it. Just that one thing can make a huge difference in a student's life.
And I love that. And I used to have teachers do that. It was a wish and a star, I think we called it. But with their students, so have their students do it for each other when they're doing peer editing, things like that. And that's a really great way to get students to learn how to appropriately share positive and negative criticism, right? So
I would even say, Jamie, it also teaches the adults how to do that, because I was an instructional technology coach for 13 years. And one of the things that I found immediately when I started doing that role was even the adults have difficulty, so much difficulty, some of them, with the feedback and learning how to receive it, but then learning how to give it. And I found it in my own classroom. It's one of the things we talk a lot about, that feedback piece, because then you get into these jobs in a startup or in a corporate environment, wherever you're going, even if you're an entrepreneur, and you have to be able to handle difficult feedback. You have to know how to sort of emotionally navigate that as well. And we talk about something in our book called the AIM framework. And it's basically we were looking at all of these portrait of a graduate requirements. So we just took every single one we could find and started comparing and contrasting them. And none of them were the same. They all wanted the same result, but they were all different. So we sat down and I just said, well, my ADHD is overwhelmed by all of this. I can't imagine a student trying to navigate, like, where are they supposed to go and how are they supposed to get there? So we took kind of the AIM framework and went, okay, a school should really focus on academic excellence. Absolutely. You want your students to be able to critically think. You want them, even if they're not great test takers like me, you still want them to be able to perform well. So yes, academic excellence. And then interpersonal skills. And interpersonal skills, again, is that feedback, like really like getting in there. But then we added something called mastery of self. And it's something that we really believe in and something that I learned as a teacher. If I wasn't taking time to get to know my students, then I wasn't going to know if the 2 stars, 1 wish was going to work on them or not. And maybe I'm walking away frustrated that they didn't like it, but I don't really know my students. And if I don't know myself, I can't know my students. So we pull in some personality testing, some really easy pieces so that not just the teacher's learning who they are as a learner and a teacher, but also the students are discovering who they are, how they work, learning to accommodate for themselves. And it was really based on a lot of things that Rick and I did not receive as students who are neurodivergent. So that also plays into it because feedback is hard and it's hard for adults. And it's something that we cannot get away from, but we do talk a lot about that. And I think, like you said, just a little piece of that, teaching them how to talk to each other is also something that is really important.
I love how you dive into that in your book. I think that's super important. And sometimes it's not focused on. So I love that. I love that. Yeah.
So if we have school leaders listening, what is one small shift that they can make to start to make tomorrow look different for our students?
I think, do you want to answer this and then I'll answer it? We may have a different answer on this.
We probably got a different answer. I mean, one of the biggest things that I believe that any teacher can do, we know that for students to become leaders themselves, they need someone that is representing what a leader looks like. And teachers are doing it every single day, even when they're not thinking about it.
Right?
They're always doing it.
Yes.
And I think one of the biggest things that will strengthen every student is real world examples. So for instance, if you've got a collaborative piece, you're wanting students to go into groups of say 3, 4, 5 students per group, giving them roles and responsibilities that equal to what's out in the real world.
Yes.
Where I'm working now, product manager, a designer, an engineer, we build a digital product. You can do those kind of things. You want to have a team lead, a project manager, someone that's just overseeing, someone who might be more creative, someone that might be more hands-on of crafting something. Those are job roles that you can introduce into your classroom to say, here, who do you think wants to do these roles? This is the specifications. This is what you'd need to be doing. And those students can take that, and then as they go through their journey through education and go to the real world, they've actually got examples. They understand what this role actually is and what to expect, getting them ready for that real world. As we say, tomorrow's leaders, you've prepared them in advance. On top of that, you could even introduce into your classroom, giving students responsibilities. We always advocate that giving students the responsibility of their own learning, but give them responsibilities in the classroom. We know that teachers are swamped with everything that they're doing. Why not give the students some of that responsibility? One, it alleviates some of the work for yourself, but also gets the students involved in the classroom. They're not just going to turn up to class, sit there for however many hours, and then go home. Get them involved in it. Get them enjoying and embracing the environment, because if you do that, you start to build a culture within your classroom as well, which becomes so important, because I believe that culture is something that is struggling, especially in corporations, but is so vital. And it's something that we have at work is we focus more on EQ than IQ.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Well,
And
it's funny because this is what my book is on. It's on cooperative learning that I'm writing right now. So there's a perfect crossover
Well,
in
look,
terms of those
my
roles.
answer, Jamie, is different than Rick's. And if
How
you
was yours?
couldn't see me, I was fidgeting back here because Rick was talking, and this is what you get whenever you get the two of us together, because he's going to give you that answer. And then I'm going to go back into my teaching days. And your question, Jerry, was like, what would you tell the principals and the leaders of the school?
Yes.
And if you ask a teacher that anywhere besides school, they're probably going to tell you exactly what they would say. I would tell those leaders, I would tell those principals, I would tell those superintendents, listen more.
Yeah.
Listen more and
Yeah.
be more open to the ideas that your teachers have and
Yeah.
your students. And if there is a conflict, if there is something happening like in your school in that moment, yes, you're going to problem solve that. How can you bring in the students to help you problem solve that?
Yes.
How can, if you're going to ask a teacher to do something, so I'll just use this as an example. This is a real example here. My principal showed up at my door one summer and knocked on my door. I was not working. I was not on contract. And he's knocking on the door and he's like, I don't have a yearbook sponsor. And I think that's going to be you. Well, I was too young to know to say no.
Yes.
And but I was smart enough to say a couple of things. And so he was like, I'm not leaving until you agree. And I was like, this is crazy. What are you doing in my house? So I leveraged that moment and basically said, and really don't even know how I knew to say this, but I just said to him, I said, okay, I will take this job. So I was already kind of bargaining here. I was like, I will take this job if you pay for that yearbook to be completely created digitally, and it will be in my computer lab, and I'm going to be able to use these students. So I was kind of already doing this, but I said, I want students that are going to help me. I want 2 editors. I want 2 student editors, and I want a student who is in an accounting class to be part of my class to help me with the budgeting. So I was in charge of the entire district yearbook. That was like 1,500 students, 1,500 parents, all of the clubs. And I think when you start looking at things like that, I think principals, of course, they're going to ask their teachers. They're going to ask the teachers that they're depending on all the time.
Right.
But how can you get students involved, like Rick said, to take some of the weight off of them? How can you create an opportunity? And that's what I want to say. How are you creating opportunities to alleviate the work on your teachers, but giving students the opportunity to lead? And one of the things I said before I even left for Wakelet, I had this hashtag, and it was hashtag students can lead. And it's because I ran into so many adult educators who said they wanted to let students lead, but couldn't let go of the control enough to do that.
Yeah. They have to move from being sage on the stage to guide on the side, but they can only do that when they feel they have that opportunity to take risks.
Yes.
And they can only do that when they have the support of their administrators.
Yes.
So it's a really big deal for administrators to be able to be supportive, because once you are and you give that trust to your teachers, the learning is
amazing.
Off the charts. And I think your book can help guide them along the way.
Yes, for sure.
It's like
That is amazing. So where can people find your book? I know it's an ISTE book, which is that's incredible.
Yes, it's ISTE.org. It's on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon. Rick, what am I leaving out? There's 2. I think there's
Barnes and Noble as well. It's available. Amazon and ISTE are the main 2 to where to find it.
Yes.
And where can people find you now if they want to follow you?
Well, they can find us at, they can find me at Tisha Poncio everywhere. On TikTok, I do a lot of talking about neurodivergence. So that has kind of taken the lead over there. But I'm at Tisha Poncio everywhere. And I just want to say, I'm just going to steal Rick's thunder here. But we do a podcast also called the Ed3 Podcast. And we have educators on our podcast. We also do podcasts together. But we started it and launched it along with the book. So Rick's going to give you the exact link tree for that.
The podcast smash.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Loving it.
Rick, where can they find you?
Tish always likes to bring this up because unfortunately my username is not consistent everywhere.
Yeah, she's lucky. It's okay.
yeah.
Smart. Brilliant.
But I'm available on X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. If you just search Rick Butterworth, I should pop up. With regards to the Play Ed3 podcast, we're on all socials. Play Ed3 Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we've got social on Instagram, TikTok, all those nice areas.
all the
Love
things.
it.
All the
Yes,
things.
we
Oh,
are
yes.
going to get that out.
Thank
How
you.
exciting.
Thank you.
Yes. And oh, go ahead, Jamie.
No, I was gonna say we'll get to see you at ISTE. You'll be
You
there
will.
again.
Yes.
We will be there. We have a session, an official ISTE session that we're doing. And then we just got word this week that we're going to be doing a session for the learning stage again. So we'll be doing 2 sessions at ISTE, but we would love to meet you. We would love to see you. And we hope we get to hang out with you guys again. Jamie, I will feel much better this time.
Yes. Good.
Yes.
We're gonna take our vitamins. Good.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Good,
Oh,
good,
this is
good.
incredible. Thank you so much. And the work that you're doing is so important and
Great.
it's so inspiring.
Thank
It
you.
is.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
both for
Yeah.
having us.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.